Okay, hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about the different types of cookies as well as the different types of web protocols and how you're going to come across them in real life and what they actually do, their functionality. So here we're going to go over the table of contents. So first there's the introduction, like what even are cookies, and then I'll talk about how the term cookie has progressed and what it is now and how they're used. Then we're going to go over the TCP, IP, and UDP, which are different protocols, and then also HTTP protocols, and we'll tie it all together with conclusion at the end. So introduction to cookies.
All right, so I'll be giving a quick introduction of cookies. We'll go definitely more in depth in the lecture later on. But have you guys ever wondered how Google or other websites remember username and password? This is how actually cookies work. So cookies are basically files created by websites you visit, and the files and data that the websites create, which are basic cookies, they're linked to your computer, and they have a unique ID to it, so they can recognize you anytime you go on their specific website. And websites also utilize cookies to save information about users for multiple different purposes, which we'll be talking about later, but some include easier browsing experience and other like advertisements. So numerous types of cookies that work together. They all work together to track your data. We'll be talking about basically some different types of cookies like magic cookies and the HTTPS cookies, which is basically the main type of cookies used today. And in general, it helps provide relevant ads/recommendations or informations on user experience. And this quote unquote improves web experience, as there are definitely a lot of advantages to websites, but they can also intrude on some privacy issues.
Okay, now I'm going to go over magic and HTTP cookies. And magic cookies, they're essentially like an outdated version of the current cookie, but they are like they are unchanged packets that contain information being received and sent. And typically they would be used when like logging into a computer database system. And as I said before, it's the precursor to the modern cookies, which are HTTP cookies. And the HTTP cookie is the magic cookie, but repurposed for web browsing. And it manages like the online experience by storing data that's personalized for the user. And however, it can be used for malicious activities, but it can also be used for a lot of good, which is its main purpose. So let's take a deeper look into it. So as I said before, it can be used to customize the user's web browsing experience. Upon opening a new website, the web server will give an ID to the user. So whenever the user logs back on, it'll recognize this ID stored in the cookie, and it'll bring up any previous information stored from their previous sessions to apply to the current session. So a good analogy to look through this is, let's say you're going into a hotel, and then when you first check into the hotel, they'll give you a room card, which is essentially like this unique ID. So you keep that on you, like which is like how like the cookie is stored in the web browser. And then whenever you go back to your hotel room, it'll know that this room key is like unique to you and allow you to enter and access like previous information, such as how you turn on the AC, or like how the bed covers are like, they're messed up. It'll take note of your previous sessions and it'll bring it back to the current one. So that's basically a good analogy to look at how cookies function to store information and improve like the current session when you log into the websites. And the use cases can be broken down to three main things. And if we're talking about tracking, it basically just sees based on their actions what they might want to see later, such as when you're on like a site such as Amazon or like any other kind of shop online. When you buy a certain thing, they might suggest like other things that are similar. So you might be inclined to buy those. And for session management, it takes specific information, and then it also like takes note of their preferences and maybe like login info. So like when you open another session, it'll know that you entered in your login info in the previous session, and it'll put it in for you. Like it kind of just like makes the process a lot smoother when you use a certain application. And then for personalization, it just like takes note of what people like or don't. And then, for example, it can use that for ads that's specific to a certain person. So yeah. And then now we're going to go over how they're used.
So there's two types of cookies when you really come down to it. So there are session cookies and there are persistent cookies. And the persistent cookies are also known as tracking cookies, in which they basically like track your user information from website to website. And there are two types of tracking cookies. There are like first-party cookies that are only the information tracked are only used for the website only, and there are third-party cookies where like the information are used by like many different like companies that you don't know about. So every time when you log into a website, you will probably see something familiar to this image to the right. Like this website uses cookies. They have like strictly necessary cookies, performance cookies, and targeting cookies. Like you're usually like provided with prompt like accept all or decline all or like choose some of them. So this section we'll talk about like what each type of cookie are like really doing. Okay, so session cookies. So like there are cookies that store temporary information. So every time when you log into a website, like session cookies like start a new session. So like the cookies store information every time like you log into the website, but it will terminate, like the data are deleted when you like exit the website. And they are stored in RAM, like random access memory, than like the hard drive. So if you log into the website, you do some data, like you exit the website, you log into it the second day, like all the data will gone, like all the session cookie data are gone. Say like you're logged into an e-commerce website, like they're selling flowers, like you try to select some flowers you want to buy. So you select like three flowers into your shopping cart, and then you forgot like you had to buy a flower pot. So you go back, you click the backward button like on the Chrome browser, and you try to select like a flower pot. And then you go back to the shopping cart, and then you realize that like all your previous flowers are gone because this website does not have like a session cookie that tracks all the flowers you picked. So you grew frustrated and you exit the website. And unfortunately for the shop owner, like because they didn't have the session cookies installed, they just lost a valuable customer like you. So this is where session cookies are useful. They can be like collect login sessions. They can keep user created data and on the website. And even when the website is refreshed or forwarded or backwarded. So there are some examples like shopping carts, browser games, file converters, or like filling out forms online. And now we're talking about persistent cookies, the first party cookies. So there are the cookies that can pertain information over different multiple sessions. And they can also have a custom expire date that can be set by the website owner. So unlike the session cookies, like those cookies can last like over like days, months, or even years. They can be used for like customizing the website you're currently visiting, or they can help track the user information that are inputted into this website and provide like a better customer experience. So for example, back to the flower e-commerce website. So if you're logged into an account, you can try to personalize your website. Like maybe like you want the background color to be red or have like a background music playing. So every time when you log into that website, you can still have like the same red background and like the same background music that the website is going to play for you. So those are what the first party persistent cookies do. They can help provide a better customer experience over a long period of time, unlike the session cookies. And there are some examples. So like log into a website. So if you have an account logged in, every time when you log into the website, you're automatically logged in without having to re-log in the second time. And you can also customize the website or like have a search autocomplete. And there's also like second category of this persistent cookies, third-party cookies. So they track user like across multiple sessions and multiple websites. And fortunately for the users, the European Union cookie law dictates that users had to give consent to track those tracking cookies. So when you're with the website, they have to give you consent. You have to see the like a cookie prompt that like they give you the consent that the user had to give consent to. Like you had to give consent for the website to have tracking cookies on you. That's the European Union cookie law. And if you're using a Chrome and you do shift exit, a shift key plus exit X key, like on the top right, you can see the like Google Chrome task manager, where you can see all the like subframes, like all the like other like websites that are like doing like the tracking on you. So you can see like for the picture on the right, you can see that there's three lift, like smart ad server, like Rubik project, like etc. Like those are like those like third party like tracking websites that like track the user data that are collected from you, so they can give you like other websites like better like ad experience. So there are some use cases like help third-party organization collect information and like enable like personalization on a broader sense. And there are some examples like Google advertisement, like subframes in the Chrome Task Manager, and the social media feeds.
All right, so now we're going to start a discussion on web protocols. So first we'll discuss TCP, IP, and UDP. So TCP stands for Transmission Control Protocol. It basically is going to facilitate data transmission. All these web protocols are basically submitting data, basically transmitting data throughout a network. And starting with TCP transmission is basically going to organize and package data that is going to be later transmitted between the client side and the server side. Next is IP, which stands for Internet Protocol. So the role of IP is basically to break down data, because data needs to be broken down into smaller pieces so that it can be transferred efficiently. So this process called fragmentation is going to break apart the data, like I said earlier, and it's going to into forms of packets, and they're going to be transferred throughout the network, and later the IP is going to facilitate in rebuilding them. And lastly, we have UDP here, which stands for User Datagram Protocol. So this is really efficient for things like games because it's faster than TCP and doesn't require a network. It's often used in lossless data transmission, and it basically also has header information to a packet, which is relevant for basically advising like what's information like from the client side and the server side, like where is it being sent to? So yeah. So next we'll be discussing HTTP protocols. So starting off, I'll explain how it works and then how it's used. So how it works is basically like a process. So first of all, the client is going to basically send a request to the server. So you can think about this like on a website where a person's filling out a form and then they press the submit button and the information is going to get sent there. So throughout this process, keys and certificates are going to be exchanged between the two sides. And it's basically going to allow security, and it's going to make sure that the information gets transferred properly. So the server is going to send an encrypted page with a symmetric key. And basically what's happening behind the scenes is the information is being encrypted, because you can't have, like, for example, like a hacker that can, while the data is being transmitted, the hacker will be able to access the information if they have the key. So basically it needs to be encrypted. And then once it's encrypted, then the two sides, the client and the server, will exchange the keys, and the client side will be able to decrypt it with the key, and I'll be able to send back the appropriate information. And yeah, it's basically how it works. For how it's used, again, HTTP protocols facilitate security. So they restrict eavesdropping between a client and a web server because the information is being encrypted in between. And it's used in like things that require security. So banking websites, shopping websites, login pages, et cetera, et cetera.
All right, now I'm going to talk about the conclusion. So throughout this presentation, we've gone over several topics such as different types of cookies and how there's interaction between clients and the server, as well as how protocols facilitate the transfer of data. And hope the next time you guys will know what's happening when you're asked to accept cookies when you're on different websites, and you can know what's going on behind the scenes. And also, I hope this provides you guys with greater understanding of different protocols and which one is ideal in the specific circumstance that you're facing. Okay, thank you guys for listening. And do you guys have any questions for us? Okay, if there's no questions, I think that's pretty much it. And thank you guys for attending. We appreciate it.